Hello, hello. How are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yes, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah. Now we owe so much to independent influencers like yourself. Many people wouldn't even know we were here if you didn't have
Right.
us on. So thank
Hold
you
on.
for making space.
Let me turn you up just a little bit, Miss Simmons. Hold on. So I can make sure I hear you loud and clear. Okay, talk.
Hello, hello. This is Jade Simmons here.
That's perfect. Okay, so let's, like, the way I conduct my interviews is it's not unorthodox, but I usually start from the beginning all the way to the end. Okay, so we're gonna get to know you, who you are, and all that stuff. Okay, so let the people know who you are, where you're from, and what it is that you do, Miss Simmons.
So I am Jade Simmons coming at you here from Houston, Texas today, back in my home here. I'm an independent candidate, your one and truly serious independent candidate running for president of these here United States. I've been running since January, powered by a movement called Operation Restoration. You can learn more at operationrestoration2020.com. And I'm running completely, wholly, unaffiliated as an independent individual. As Shirley Chisholm used to say, unbought, unbossed by either party. The left or the right does not own me or my voice. That has caused some trouble for us. The fact that we have not aligned ourselves, the fact that we will not bow down to conventional wisdom, and we're not doing politics as usual. We're not talking like politicians, and that has been resonating now for the last almost 8 months with Americans from all over the political spectrum. So we're excited to be representing those who simply look up at the two options that are being forced down our throats. They do not relate to them. They do not believe that either are the way forward for this nation, and they refuse to have any party feel entitled to their vote or their voice. And so I know people are talking about splitting the vote and all of that, but listen, a wasted vote is a vote for something you don't believe in. Right. And we waste this moment by doing politics as usual. So we are standing here firmly, unafraid, courageously, speaking out of the box, offering solutions that we feel will serve more Americans than ever before. So that's who I am, and that's why I'm here.
Oh, brilliantly said. Brilliantly said. So born in Charleston, South Carolina, right?
That's right. That's right.
So how was it born? So just give us a brief rundown of how was life growing up for you in Charleston, South Carolina?
Listen, I've experienced an abundance of blessings. My father's a civil rights activist, Jerome Smalls from Charleston. On any given day, you will find him on most likely the four corners of justice in Charleston. He's on the streets. Listen, he appreciates the thousands who are out protesting now, but this is a man who's been on those corners by himself for the last 30, 40 years. So this is a bittersweet moment for him to see his daughter stepping into a void that, quite honestly, he felt should have been filled by now. So I'm continuing his work in many ways. My mother has always worked in higher education. I grew up in Charleston playing the piano. My original dream was to be a classical concert pianist. I have lived that dream and in many ways still get to live it. I've played in some of the most hallowed halls, including the White House, coincidentally, as well as the Supreme Court, Chicago Symphony Hall, Dallas Symphony Hall, all the big places I've played them. But you know, every now and then you'll get this nudge that you aren't quite being all of who you were created to be. Long story very short, I started speaking in my concerts. That led to an entirely different career as a professional speaker. And now today, major corporations bring me in with my piano, and I speak about transformation, reinvention, and I use music to drive my points home. I'm also a minister and an author of a book on prayer. And as many have seen, I run openly with my faith out front because I refuse to accept the version of it that's been presented to us wrongly, hijacked, faith I don't recognize. So I'm open about my faith so people don't have to wonder what it means to me to be a servant leader, what it means to me to honor people. But Charleston was where the roots were, you know, that's where the roots are. An incredible city, a bittersweet city, because that same beauty that it's known for is marked by the horrors and the ugliness of being one of the original ports for slavery.
Right.
5 years ago, Mother Emanuel happened. You know, the massacre at that church is right there in my hometown in Charleston. So it's one of those places you grow up and you don't escape race. You understand it. And my father made sure that we didn't have to have the chip on our shoulder. He carries that for us. You know what I'm saying? Like he carries it. He fights all the battles so that we could pick and choose which ones. But I'm one of those classic American overscheduled kids, played multiple sports, was in every activity possible, but went off to school to Northwestern to study piano performance, and then moved to Houston here with my high school sweetheart, who is my husband,
Okay.
and finished my education here in Houston.
Sweet. I was going to ask you, that was leading up to my next question, because I was seeing some of your clips. You are an incredible pianist. Like,
thank you.
I wish I could do some of the key things that you do that. So what fueled like your passion for music and getting into being a pianist?
Yeah, you know, my mother plays piano and my father dabbles in everything musical and artistic. So I grew up going to ballet and African dance classes.
Oh, okay.
I played piano, but I was also in the marching band. I wrote the drum cadences. I was in the drum line. When I went to Northwestern, I was head of the bass drum line.
Oh, wow.
And I also formed a group at Northwestern that still exists today called Boom Shaka, which is like sort of like stomp. So we had dance and percussion. And so today my concerts actually go from Rachmaninoff all the way to rap, believe it or not. I create my own beats and everything, and produce. But, you know, the music has been an incredible launching pad for me, because I think I realized very quickly that as much as I love music, what I really liked was making an impact. And so I always challenge people, don't be limited even by the one or two gifts that you're leading with out front. You know, I believe that our gifts make room for us. And so this room of politics, this is not, people think, how are you going from being a pianist to a politician? That's not what you're watching. You're watching someone who has majored in impact, majored in transformation. My knack is for helping people to see who they really are. And if anything, our nation is in the middle of an identity crisis right now.
Sure,
and we need a stellar communicator, not who just puts together a good sentence, but who can listen, hear between the lines, and be able to speak to people from all walks of life now, because we've got to rally. If we're serious about coming out of COVID-19, if we're serious now about making sure this moment that was created by the murder of George Floyd goes beyond symbolism and actually goes to real resolutions, real reform, we can't do politics as usual. So I'm stepping into this with a new lane of leadership. People can learn more at operationrestoration2020.com. If you click on the Jade Simmons story, it'll tell you how all the things I've done translate to this moment. So you don't have to wonder why I dare toss my hat in the ring for such a time as this.
Okay, all right. So I know I was did some research, and I saw that you was crowned Miss Chicago, crowned Miss Illinois. I just clapped that.
Ages ago. That's right. It feels like
yes. So how has those accomplishments molded you into the woman that you are today?
Yeah, you know, I like to try to keep it as real as possible. Growing up, I didn't really think much of pageants. I was a serious musician. I wanted to go to college and major in music and be, again, a serious, you know, classical musician. And I was lured into pageants because of scholarship money. When they told me, what, I could pay for college on this thing? Let me check it out.
Let me go, right.
I can do it. And I dove in, and because of my talent at the piano, that helped me go very far in the Miss America system. People don't know the Miss America program is the largest provider of scholarships for women in the world. Oh, wow. So I paid for a large part of my education at Northwestern from my scholarship money being in the pageants. But probably the most impactful moment was as Miss Illinois and as first runner-up, I spoke on youth suicide prevention as my platform. Again, something people said, you can't do that. It's too sad. It's too dark. We had a suicide in our high school that no one had talked about. And I remember thinking, why is nobody talking about this? When I ran for Miss Illinois, Columbine had just happened.
Oh,
So
wow.
I ended up being a very sought after speaker on the issue of youth violence, bullying, suicide prevention. And at 22, I testified in front of Congress on behalf of mental health funding and mental health awareness. And so that's an area that's very close to my heart. And I see it in the African American community being an issue that's still not talked about enough. We're watching now in the aftermath of COVID-19, our healthcare workers take their lives because, first of all, we didn't equip them powerfully in the beginning. And then we're sending them back out in this resurgence without them having recovered, mourned. You know, they are not just being nurses and doctors right now. They're nurses, doctors, social workers, chaplains. You know, they're being with people for their final breaths because their family can't be in the room. And we haven't equipped them. We haven't equipped them, empowered them, or served them well. So one of the reasons that we are running the way that we are is because we want people to see leadership that prioritizes people for a change, people over politics, profit, and personal agenda every single time. So, you know, the pageant was this jumping off point where I learned that communication was a serious skill of mine. And I also jumped into advocacy, two things that I continue to bring to the table now.
Okay. Like, I'm not sure, and I believe it was in '04, you created the Impulse Artist Series, which actually was like the Houston Best Nonprofit Award, which is incredible. So, like, dive into that a little bit. Tell some people about that, because, I mean, that kind of like transcended a lot of different things that we're going to talk about leading up. So talk about that for a minute.
You did your research. You dug deep.
Yes.
You dug way back. Yeah, you know what you're gonna find and I love that you're doing the research. That's what we ask people to do. You know what's been the most frustrating thing is when people come for me, they haven't done any research. They haven't been on the website, haven't read a policy or a platform, and have the nerve to tell me to sit my behind down. That's what they say, but they don't use that word, right? And they're coming at me hard. And I always say, make sure that the person you're standing behind so hard also has your back in the same way.
Right.
And I would love to be the leader of the most informed nation that does their research, that does not allow any party to be entitled to what they do. So when people do their research, we love it. I'd rather you come for me because you don't like my stance on healthcare. Come to me because you're upset about my stance on helping military families, which I don't know how you could be. Come for me because you take it, right? We've got to start allowing these parties to put words in our mouths and also to put fear. Fear has been the biggest opposition. People rarely come to me and say, we're not for you because of policy. They come at me because they say, we're afraid that if we vote for you, this is going to happen. Friends on both sides, my Democratic friends will say, if we vote for you, it's going to split our vote. First of all, who is our?
Right. Who is our?
Right. We got to decide who our and we really is in this season. You know, and stop letting politicians pander to us every 4 years and then expect us to just vote for them because we don't have a better option. My friends on the right, my Republican friends say, we really would want to vote for you, but we fear socialism, right? And these are my Christian friends. And I say, if we look at who Christ was when he walked this earth, he was amongst the outcast. He was concerned about the poor, the brokenhearted, the downtrodden. That's not socialism. The founders of our Constitution, the men who wrote that thing, even said that their job, the Constitution's job, is to secure our inalienable rights. Not just to run around saying we have them, but to secure them. And unless you think the founders and the writers of the Constitution are socialists, which I don't hear anybody saying, then we need to do the job of fulfilling the things we've always said we were going to do. So Impulse Artist Series is when you look back, we challenge you. A leader will lead the way they have always lived. So there have been a couple of themes you'll see. Impulse was an organization I founded for artists because when I got out of school, I knew how to play Beethoven like nobody's business, but nobody had taught me how to have a career, how to make a profit, how to earn a living playing Beethoven. So I had to figure that stuff out. And then what I did was I taught it back to other artists. So Impulse Artist Series was something created to give other artists a chance to, first of all, understand what it looks like to build a career, know how to write a resume, know how to get media appearances, know how to really use opportunity to create new opportunities. Our nation must become now a producer nation. We're a rapidly consumer nation. And we got hurt in COVID-19 because we didn't produce here on our own soil. Our own American companies are manufacturing abroad, and right here we don't have enough jobs. So what you'll see is a theme of looking for opportunity, looking to be able to provide opportunity for others, helping people to become self-sufficient, and also instigating creativity in people, unleashing their purpose so that they can be about doing what they were put on this earth to do, not just waiting around for government. Here's the political candidate telling you, do not put all of your eggs in the political basket.
Right.
Don't put it in the presidential basket. But what the president can do is set the tone and the atmosphere to allow you to be able to rise up. The last thing you want is an instigator in chief or an absentee in chief. Those you don't want that. In this season right now, you must have someone who is for you and not against you. Someone who has your back and is looking to not just serve a small base. And so even though I'm an artist, I'm not only here for artists. Even though I'm a Black person, I'm not only here for Black people. Although, if you go to OperationRestoration2020.com, you'll see policy that is also specifically geared for impacting Black people. Why? It's not reverse racism. It's because after hundreds of years of systemic injustices, those things must also be systematically undone. So I propose policy for that. But if you look back and keep digging, you're going to see some themes there. And those themes are also the themes I would carry over into my presidency.
Right. I mean, because I with everybody that I interview, I always do my due diligence and research. So like I'm always informed of what's going on. And what intrigued me about you is how upfront and real everything is presented, especially with your website and just the way you present yourself, because you're a powerful public speaker. So that's something that resonates with me, and I'm pretty sure it resonates with a lot of people, not only African-American people, but people of all different colors and genres and things of that nature. And that's what compelled me to say, hey, I want to talk to you and feel you out and see, because you are very relatable. And that's what I think a lot of people don't get with these two, or with the current president, obviously, and just with other people that's running, because they don't feel relatable to them. Yeah. So just to keep it on the scope of transcending into where you are now, right? Sure. Let's go back into the music, right? I know you released an album in, I believe, 2009, was called Revolutionary. I forgot the name.
Rhythm, you got it.
Yes, Revolutionary Freedom. So your passion for music, you released the album. What was your mindset when you was making that album and say, hey, I'm going to try this out?
Yeah, you know, when I started playing these concerts, my favorite composer is Rachmaninoff. I love the bass of Beethoven. You know, I always heard the music differently than some of my peers. And as a result, I performed it differently. And so the trademark of how I performed was always with a lot of passion and a lot of emotional connection with the composer, the music, and the audience. But I would come out and play these concerts, and I was the only Black person in the room. I was the only person under 65 in the room. And I got very curious about why was I the only one? And, you know, today people create diversity initiatives, right, to try to figure out how to get more color in the room, more ethnicity in the room.
Right.
I don't think that's what we do. I think what you have to make sure you do first is be the most diverse version of yourself possible. So the truth was, I was in this room, but I was only being about 40% of myself. Classical, I loved. But like on the side, I was listening to Missy, you know, I was listening to African drumming. I got very curious if I could stop compartmentalizing myself and not just bring in other genres of music, but bring in humor, bring in inspiration, bringing interactivity. So I was doing this in the early, 2009, 2008, 2010. And what happened was my audience started to diversify with me. You see, when we bring all of ourselves to every single table, every single time, it frees people up to be themselves as well. Right. So I ended up earning this nickname called Classical Music's #1 Maverick. And that was because my audiences were some of the most diverse in the industry of classical. And because the experiences were unexpected and powerful. We need an unexpected, powerful experience now. We already had COVID-19, that was unexpected. We already had George Floyd, that was tragic, but it was powerful. Now we need an uncommon solution to the mess that we're in. I decided to run because I sensed we were coming into a season where race relations were going to be at an all-time low, and where I felt like economically the gap between the rich and the poor was just too big to be ignored. I didn't know COVID-19 was going to happen and expose us like it did. I didn't know that George Floyd was going to be murdered publicly for the whole world to see and rally behind in terms of justice. And so even though we decided to run in January, we feel that those two subsequent events also confirm the reason that we're here right now. We ask people, don't say, people say, why do you think you're better than Biden or you're better than Trump? That's the wrong question.
Right.
The right question is who is right for this moment.
Right.
And if we're just honest about it, first of all, show of transparency, I'm not the only other person running. Joe Jorgensen, check her out. Libertarian is running. A guy named Brock Pierce. I don't know how serious he is. I haven't followed his campaign. You know, we got Kanye West who ran out there, but he's not really running. He's not serious. And I say that because I know it. And so that's been a thorn in my side because people assume that I'm the same as him. I've been running since January with serious proposals, serious policy. Do your homework and don't be in a hurry. We still got 70 plus days here. Americans make tough decisions in less than 48 hours where their futures and families are at stake. 70 days is a long time to contemplate something new and something we believe is powerful. So that's why we're still here. That's why we're still standing.
Right. I mean, on top of your many accolades, author is one of them as well. So I know in 2011 you released a book called Emerge Already. Just pretty much give the people a rundown of what was your mindset, because it was a bestseller. What was your mindset that you said, hey, I want to take on the title of being an author?
Wow. You know, so what I teach people is I talk about purpose a lot. And so on many of the stages that I'm speaking on, whether it's from the pulpit at church or in some major Fortune 500 company or big organization, I always say, I help people remember what purpose really is. And I say, your purpose is not the thing you do. Your purpose is the thing that happens in others when you do what you do. So once I discovered that freed me up from the piano only. You see, my purpose was the piano. So then that meant that's the only way I could impact. But when you realize your purpose is what happens when you're in the room, it's what breaks out in others. And my purpose was to activate people into being a bigger version of themselves, a bolder version. And when I figured that out, I was like, oh man, I can say yes to whatever as long as I'm fulfilling purpose. So I can write a book if when you read it, it activates you into being bigger and bolder. I can preach if when you hear my sermon, it activates you, right? So Emerge Already was a book for artists that does just what the series did, helps artists build their career. And then my most recent book is Audacious Prayers for World Changers. And that helped people pray bolder. I thought I prayed like everybody else. And people started to tell me, I didn't know you could pray that way. I'm like, pray what way? Like, God's huge. Our prayers should be ginormous. And so when I wrote that book, I was shocked because, again, it was something the pianist wasn't supposed to do. But it was a bestseller because it changed the way that people spoke to the God that created them. And that was life altering for many people. And so, you know, me being an author or a speaker or musician, all it is me deciding that my purpose gets to ride itself out in these different vehicles. And running for president, of course, it's the biggest iteration of what I've been practicing and preaching. But what I believe is it's not as wild as people might think. You know, if for any of you out there thinking about taking a big, bold leap, what you do is you look at your track record, you know, and what my track record shows is that I've always prioritized people. I've always prioritized their growth, their transformation, and I've always looked for ways to foster reconciliation, but not before doing the hard work of diagnosing what the real issue is and pushing through the pain. You see, I think now we want to get out of this. We want to go back to normal, and a lot of people feel like if they elect one person, it might make things feel a little better. Maybe it won't be as chaotic, but I say this moment is too big to just feel better. Like we actually have to be better and do better. And so, you know, I'm here because I believe what we need now is to lean in as a nation, actually become all the stuff we said we were, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Sounds familiar,
Right.
but we don't really see it in practice. And I believe if we elect politics as usual, we're going to just end up with symbolism instead of real reform.
Right. And I'm going to dive into the nitty gritty now. I know the process started in January, and you announced it in February that you was actually running, for presidency. So I just want you to educate the people as far as what, because you're running as an independent presidential candidate. So two things, a two-part question. Like, what is the process of running for independent? And there's a lot of people that they don't understand the difference between independent, Democrat, and Republican.
Yeah.
So I want you to give insight on that.
Yeah, I love it. It's a little bit of voter education, which is so necessary right now. First of all, even if you're not sure you want to vote, I implore you to get registered, because believe me, the shenanigans are on the way. They have already started. When I tell you both parties are battling like you would not believe behind the scenes to control this outcome. And we can convince you later whether or not it's worth voting, what the vote is really about. But in case you slip up and change your mind and decide you want to vote, go ahead and get registered now. For me, the process is much harder, but it is viable. So before I go on, I'm going to just do me a favor, throw away all the stuff you know about how independents never win. Throw away all that stuff. She has zero chance. First of all, let nobody prophesy over your life, because they are not God. And they cannot tell you you have zero chance, because they did not create a hope and a future for you. So let me just throw that out there for all of you, who've been coming at me about right? So here's what's up. As an independent, I still participate in the Electoral College. A lot of people were worried I didn't get to do that. The difference is I get to choose my electors. So I can invite you and say, hey, will you represent North Carolina for me? Normally, electors are given to the big dollar donors or the VIPs. We want our electoral college to look like the Americans that we're going to represent, which should be a diverse group of people. So we go to each state, we line up electors for each state. We have to do the hard work of either getting on the ballot in that state by gathering signatures, or of being a registered write-in. In the majority of states, you will not see my name on the ballot. You'll see that blank line and you get to write me in. Listen, it does count. Now, if you write in Mickey Mouse, that doesn't count. If you write in your favorite politician, let's say you write in Bernie Sanders, you're mad he didn't get the nomination, you write him in as a protest vote. Well, it's a protest, but it doesn't count, because Bernie is not registered in each state as a registered write-in. That's the work that we are doing. And so in about 2 weeks, we'll release a list so you can see what state you'll see my name on the ballot and which state I'll be a registered write-in in. When we win the popular vote in Texas, I'm just going to declare that. I'm going to speak a thing into existence. When we win the popular vote in Texas, what will happen is we win all 38 electoral votes. We've got our electors pre-selected. They will, go to the state capitol and say, we confirm that the electoral vote here goes to Jade, and then I win that state. We have to get to 270 electoral votes, just like the other candidates. Okay, so we're viable, we're legal. Unlike some people, we waited a month to announce because we wanted to make sure our paperwork with the FEC was filed and that we were on record, because we thought there's no way the media would cover us if we hadn't filed our paperwork and were serious.
Right.
And what we discovered was that's not the case. We have faced intense shutout by the media. The media either leans to the left or the right. They are either in agreements contractually with the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. And as a result, they work very hard to make sure you never hear from third party or independent candidates. So people say, why doesn't she put herself out there? Listen, if you want the book we could write, the book we could write right now on what goes on behind the scenes to manipulate voters into voting one way or another, it's been just so eye-opening, and most Americans will never know that. But we have been here and we've been running. And so come November 3rd, you'll go into your voting booth. You'll either see my name and vote for it, or you'll write my name in. And that's also a qualified vote for me. And we participate like everybody else. So that's why we've been doing the hard work behind the scenes to make sure that we're a viable option for Americans who want something different.
Oh man, amazing, amazing. Now let's talk about Operation Restoration. Right now, I was on there. I was on the website. I was looking at it. I really want you to dive in for the people who don't understand the policies, right? And I just want to read it because I wrote it down so I got it right. So the 3 parts was pro-human, pro-prosperity, and pro-protection, right? So just tell the people who haven't been on the website yet and seen those policies, just give a quick breakdown of those 3 parts there and what it entails.
Yeah. So those are mostly the categories of where our policy will fall under. Those are the things we prioritize. So pro-human means we believe in the sanctity of life from the womb to the tomb. So don't come here talking to me about how you care about unborn babies and then tell me you don't care that people are dying at the border. You don't care that families are being taken off of assistance during COVID-19, or you don't care that people like George Floyd are dying under the necks of corrupt policemen. So we believe now it's time to have the full discussion that if you're truly for people, if you care about life, you got to care about all these issues. So our policies on whether it's abortion, which we talk about reproductive possibility, that's on there. You're going to see our reforms for immigration. You'll see that there. Education, that'll be under the pro-human tab. Pro-prosperity is where we cover all the economic policies. Here's what we want, period, point blank. We want access to opportunity for all Americans, period. I can't, as the president, promise your outcome. The least I can do is make sure you are not oppressed or suppressed or blocked in your attempts to do for yourself and your family. So what you'll see us doing is proposing reforms that have blocked many Americans out of the ability to go after the American dream. You'll see us holding corporations accountable. They can't be building the American dream on the backs of American workers and American workers not participate in that reward. So you'll see our policies on that. We believe as well that American companies need to be here, building manufacturing centers for us here. And then our pro-protection, right now, we actually release later tomorrow and all of this weekend and next week, all of our policies relating to police reform, criminal justice reform, mental health, suicide prevention. You'll see many of the policies there that also talk about gun control. People are asking, where do you stand? Where do you stand? Right. So we've been trying to release in a very strategic way. One of the ways we do, we use a lot of video so that people can just click and understand. They can hear me and share it if they want to share it. We also have audio clips so that you can hear my stances on many things. We found out very early that most people aren't reading policy when you just have it written out in text form. Right. So you'll see a lot of video there as well. We also have top 20 platform issues, Post-it note size. So if you just want to know where do you stand on this, just give me the skinny. You'll see that there are top 20 visionary platforms. We release more each week. So we've been trying to be consistent when we say we want to serve the most Americans possible. You'll never see me demonize poor people or demonize wealthy people. You won't see me demonize corporations, but you will hear me call them accountable, hold them accountable. You won't hear me. We avoid all the rhetoric that gets hijacked. So that's why we came up with pro-human, because people want to know, are you pro-life or are you pro-choice? Listen, I believe people are our most valuable resource. How can I make it so more Americans are born, more Americans stay alive, more Americans' lives aren't taken unjustly? That's how I focus it. We believe that our job is always to reverse hearts and minds, that we don't spend a lot of time reversing legislation because it's symbolic, right? This era we're in is symbolic. Like, do we want this to really be just the era where, you know, Nancy Pelosi and crew put on kente cloth and kneel in the Capitol and we're yanking statues down and Aunt Jemima comes off the shelf? Or do we really want to see policy that enables more people to own businesses, more people to be able to buy houses if they want them? You know, we want real reform. And so that's where we put our focus, and you'll see that in our policies.
Great, man. Listen.
You're serious, right? I'm serious, right? Come on.
That's why I was like, this is probably one of my most intriguing interviews, because I'm probably interviewing the next president of the United States of America. You know, put that in the air, because I feel like, you know. So my next question is, because when people hear independent, right, they just think that that's what it is, independent. You don't really have the backing that the bells and whistles that the Democratic Party, Republican parties have. So where does the financial backing come from in enabling you to do these campaigns and do the things that you have to do to be in the forefront and say, hey, look, I'm running for president?
Yeah, you know, listen, we couldn't have plowed a more difficult path. But there's a couple of reasons I ran as an independent. First of all, I truthfully don't align with either party. None of them encapsulate my heart or my vision for this nation. If they did, that's where I'd be.
Right.
I have been asked by both parties to run before. I've just never felt like either of those. I knew I couldn't be the only one feeling politically homeless, right? Just put it in here. Put it in the comments if you too feel politically homeless, right?
I like that phrase.
And the extremes don't represent us. So it's a difficult path because of this. Even though I work with so many corporations, have lots of CEOs in my contact book right on my phone, we have decided not to have this be about big corporate donations. Because then you'd have to wonder if the decisions I was making was based on the donations I need to pay back, the favors I have to repay, the strings attached. So we said, let's do this based on two things. We are financed solely by individual small donors, everyday Americans who give what they can. We also did not ask for funds during the height of COVID-19. It just didn't feel right to us. It didn't feel right to us to ask that. But we kept the doors open because people who were able to donate could do that. Your girl right here is also financing a large part of her campaign. Let me just tell you that, because I believe that your leaders should have skin in the game. I also believe that we want to be open and transparent. My taxes, whenever they need them, they can have them. And I'll tell you what, it's doing taxes that makes you understand the pickle that so many Americans are in. Because here's someone being a freelance artist who was literally having to play a gig, to make ends meet. I'm blessed to have a husband who's former military and has an incredible job as an air traffic controller. So we were never in danger of starving. But in terms of being able to really build something, it was next to impossible as an independent artist doing the things that I was doing. I had to learn how to become an entity, how to become an enterprise. And I now have a very successful business with employees that I had to worry about how was I going to pay them during COVID-19, right? So just like other Americans, I was waiting on the stimulus check, not to come to me personally, but the one from my business, the PPP loan, all that stuff they told us we were supposed to get. And just like other small business owners, we were left out of that first round. We watched major corporations get small business money. If that's a loophole, what that means is that no member in Congress on the right or the left who supposedly wrote the bill caught the loophole. Do you understand? Those two parties often work together when it behooves them. Do you understand? Because that means they had donors, they had corporations that they had to let find the loophole so that they would be served first. We have to wake up. Independent is the most American thing you can be. That's the most American thing. We should all be independents, and these politicians should be out here fighting to earn our vote. Right now, they can hide out for months on end because where else are we going to go? Right now, they can say whatever they want because you're not going anywhere. You don't want those guys to win. So I can do whatever I want. Right? And we have decided we didn't want Americans who honestly did not see an option out of the two to have to go to the polls again, feeling like they were voting for the lesser of two evils. Or not vote. Many of the people who say they're voting for us had already decided not to vote. Or we now have people who are registering to vote for the first time so they can vote for us. We also have disgruntled Democrats, restless Republicans, hardcore independents who said neither of those two had my vote in the first place. We now find a home in you. So when we do the math, we don't see a zero chance candidate. We see a chance for really serious disruption. The same people who snuck and voted for Obama one year and then snuck and voted for Trump, we believe they're actually going to sneak and vote for me this year as well. So we're excited about the potential for disruption.
Good. That's what I'm talking about. So the next question is, being a woman, right? And not only being a woman, being an African American woman, right? One of the things during the presidency of Barack Obama, a lot of African Americans in the community said, well, Obama didn't do anything for us, right? And I kind of, I get upset when I hear that, because I'm like, you understand, he was the president of the United States, not the president of African Americans. So what do you say to those people who are going to say, hey, what is Ms. Simmons going to do for our community?
Well, I think one of the luxuries that President Obama didn't have was the luxury of this moment we're in. Mm-hmm. You know, what he didn't have was universal buy-in that systemic racism exists. You've got white people, Asian people, American Indian people, Hispanic people admitting that this thing exists and that it affects African Americans disproportionately. He didn't have that buy-in. So it didn't matter what he did. Somebody was going to be mad at him. And right. I'm relating very well as I run, but we'll get to that later. So what we did was, again, as the daughter of a civil rights activist, there was no way I could put out policy and proposal that didn't specifically address systemic injustices that have uniquely affected African Americans. So when you go to the website, operationrestoration2020.com, click on that pro-human tab, then you're going to click Shades of Breakthrough, and you're going to see Breakthrough for Black Americans. Because here's what's happened. As we have become more politically correct as a society, what we started doing was we made programs that were available for minorities. The problem was we never defined minorities specifically. And as a result, minorities could also mean white women. So when you had small business loans, they were open to minorities. The majority of small business loans that are given to minorities actually go to white women. And it's, look, I'm glad they're getting loans. They need them too. But what that meant is you had a large portion of people who those programs were meant for actually left out of those programs. Right. I used to have a scholarship that was for minorities at the time, which meant African-American kids. It was the Jackie Robinson Scholarship. And now that scholarship routinely does not go to a majority of African-Americans because that word was left kind of able to be shifted as needed. So you'll see programs that specifically address the needs of African Americans there, but you're also going to see programs that specifically address the needs of Native Americans, of immigrants, of small business owners, of women, of children, of farmers, because we have to now get specific and address the needs of the different demographics that have historically been underserved in our nation. So I unapologetically will be a champion for many underserved groups, as well as African Americans. I'm a proud Black woman from proud Black parents. That's nothing. Listen, I don't have to apologize for that. And the luxury that I have that President Barack Obama did not is that we're in this moment now where finally the rest of the world is willing to admit, you know, we got all these statements of solidarity, but here's the flip side. If we elect what I believe is politics as usual, and the two options that we have, this moment of Black Lives Matter and Black voices matter and Black candidates matter, I think will just be symbolism. I can tell you that because as a supposed Black voice that matters, I've watched myself be shut out by all of the same networks who were displaying the fist and showing the solidarity. So this Black voice doesn't matter because it's not saying what they want it to say. We had a producer say to us, we can't afford to show her because she's too compelling and she will mess up what we are trying to do. Wow. The media shouldn't be trying to do anything. Right. So that producer and her networks were already lined up behind Biden and the DNC, so they could not risk showing me because I would be compelling. And so, you know, that's why I say we're so thankful for you and people like you, because you're giving us a space to be heard. But that's part of that uphill battle that independents face. But we're still here. We're still standing, and people are starting to find us now, and they're rallying for us and spreading the word.
Right, because I had a friend that hit me up. He was like, oh, you interviewing her? He was like, and he went and did his due diligence, and he hit me back. He was like, man, she got my vote. She was like, he said, you were so compelling, and I mean, everything is so upfront, and you can see it, and it's relatable. So I think a lot of people, like I said before, they want to feel like they have somebody in that type of position that's not only relatable, but feel that they are going to do what they say, you know, so to speak. So my next question to you is, just the overlying question, like, why should somebody vote for Miss Jade Simmons?
Somebody was saying, you know, why are you out here doing this now? This moment's too serious to be playing games. So what I believe is that I'm here because this moment is serious, because we can't afford to elect again what I consider to be re-electing an instigator who's going to make these times worse, whose heart is not for all of the people, and who openly only looks to support and push through policy that supports a very small segment of our population. I also believe that we have to have a voice now that doesn't pander to us, but that really is committed to finding solutions that we haven't yet had. We don't just need change right now. We need a paradigm shift. So why would you elect a candidate? If you remember when Barack Obama announced, they put Vice President Biden with him to balance him out, right, because he was too radical for the moment. They gave him Biden to be, you know, let's tone down that change piece, right, let's calm things down. Why in the era when you need paradigm shift, when you have to help poor people build pathways out of poverty, when you have to help middle class people stop treading water so that they can actually elevate? Good news for those of you who are just holding on. This recession is actually a good thing for many people in the middle class. The middle class and the working class poor always do better in a recession because prices will drop. Those of you looking to launch your business, this is actually the time to do it. The recession will be a perfect time for possibility. Nobody else is going to tell you that. Why? Because they want you afraid. They want you to feel like the whole world is going to crumble if you don't elect them. That's a fear-based agenda. You vote for us because you're ready now to vote for vision over fear. You're ready now to vote for vision over politics. And you're not going to allow people to scare you into settling for simply getting someone out of office or to settle just for keeping someone else out. You know, this is a season now we have to put something powerful in. So we say, listen, don't vote because I was compelling on this one live. Please go do your due diligence. Read through the policy and then ask yourself, is what she's proposing and presenting going to be good, not just for me, but for other Americans as well? We got to get out of this self-centered me, my four, and no more. We have to now vote in a way, not just that people say vote like your life depends on it. First of all, depends on right. Your life does not depend on this. Do not let any man or woman make you think they are your savior, because they are not. When President Trump was elected, and many of us couldn't believe that and were shocked, we still woke up the next day and we lived our lives. We owe it to the people who have lost their lives wrongfully because of the mishandling of COVID-19. We owe it to them to not be in fear when we go to the polls, but to be in power and to put something powerful in. So you're going to vote for Operation Restoration for Jade Simmons because you hear a vision that resonates with yours. Restoration has been the word on my brain for the last 3 or 4 years. When my husband and I first talked about my doing this, and my family and I talked, they said, what's the rationale? And I said, the word that God has put on my heart is restoration. And restore simply means to return, to put something back in order. Revolution doesn't mean to become anything radically different. People are afraid of that word. Revolution means to return to a source that has always given you life. Right. This is a season now. We don't have to become anything radically different. We just have to become the radical thing we already said we were. One nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And you ask yourselves as you compare the candidates, will this candidate truly fight for a new season of liberty and justice for every American? Not just the Americans that vote for him, not just the Americans that are loyal to him. You know how many haters I picked up over the last 7 months? I've had more hate come at me, more negativity in the last 2 months than my entire 42 years on this planet. Wow. And much of that negativity has come from people who look like me. Come on, who look exactly like me. The majority of the negativity has come from other people who look like me. But you know what I say? Listen, it's about fear. They're coming at me with their fear out front. I'm still going to serve them. I'm still going to lead with them in the forefront of my mind and my heart. You want a president that doesn't get ticked off when people don't like what he says, and then he decides he's not going to throw aid that way because
Right.
they were disloyal. You understand? So you
Right.
vote for me now because you want someone who is going to put people over politics, people over profit, people over personal agenda every single time. If you look up my track record, if you do your due diligence, then you
Yes.
will see that that's the pattern. You can only lead how you have lived. The current president is leading exactly how he has always lived. I
Right.
believe that Joe Biden will lead exactly how he has always lived. You got to decide which one of those lives represents the vision for the future that you want to see, and you want to have to be held accountable, and hold me accountable. Hold
Right.
me accountable.
Listen.
What? I'm
Right.
looking at the comments. One
Comments.
nation under a groove. I like that too. Listen, I like that too. We can roll with that too, because I believe it's time for us to create a whole new rhythm, a whole new beat that we're going to march to. And as dark as these times are, I see great light, great possibility. I think this is America's arise and shine moment. And so me being here is not because it's about me. It's because I see the potential and the possibility in every American to do more, to have more, and to really contribute. And I think you have to have a leader who will be a champion for all Americans. And that's what I'm here pledging to be.
Right. Listen, there's nothing else you could say that's going to stray me away from not voting for you.
Wow.
Everybody that I know that follows me and follow the brand know who I'm going for. So
Wow.
before we get into anything, I want to lighten the mood a little bit. I always like to play a game with my guests, just
All
to
right.
lighten it up and give people, more insight. So I always go to, it's called like your favorite. So this one's called Jade's Faves, okay?
Okay.
So, your favorite food?
Oh, depends on the day, but I'm a steak girl. Steak and potatoes.
Steak and potatoes, okay.
Yeah.
Your favorite fast food restaurant?
Oh. Well, I think we keep the lights on at Chick-fil-A. So I'm gonna just go ahead and we go there enough that I'm sure we pay a serious part of their bill. So I'm gonna say Chick-fil-A.
A lot of people love Chick-fil-A. I don't know. And I'm from New York, and I don't know about Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
Your favorite genre of music? I already know already, but
I go back and forth. It depends on the day of the week. Right now, I'm all about worship music, contemporary Christian music, because that's what's powering me through these days. But then you let me sit down and I go, oh, classical. I can't live without classical. Then on a good day, if I got to work out, it's all about hip hop and R&B. So I pretty much love most styles of music. There's only maybe one or two genres that I could do without.